Greetings, everyone. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to the thrilling crime movie, Con Air, so watch out and proceed with caution. Cameron, an American Army commando, is taking part in a ceremony to officially be discharged from the Army and return home to his beautiful wife, Tricia, who is pregnant with his child. His happiness is evident on his face. However, his joy is short-lived when he encounters a group of thugs who mock him and tease Tricia, even going so far as to take the badge from his shirt and beat him. In a fit of rage, Cameron counterattacks, beating the three thugs, one of whom is accidentally killed. In court, Cameron pleads not guilty, claiming that he defended himself properly. Despite this, the judge still sentences him to manslaughter, with a 10-year prison sentence. However, with good behavior, he is allowed to be released after 7 years. Despite the harshness of his sentence, Cameron's spirit remains determined. Every day, he trained intensely in prison to maintain his superhero physique. As time passed, Cameron's wife gave birth to a little girl while he was in prison. Despite the distance, Cameron kept in touch with his wife and daughter through letters, watching his daughter grow from afar. Suddenly, 8 years had passed and his daughter had already entered elementary school and it was her birthday. Cameron's application for release was finally approved, and he boarded a prisoner transport plane in order to make it home in time for his daughter's special day. Accompanying Cameron on the flight was his fellow inmate, Odell, who was severely diabetic. The other prisoners on board were all vicious convicts, most of them sentenced to life. Among them was Billy Bedlam, who had killed everyone in his wife's family, including the family dog, due to her adultery. This flight was certainly going to be a memorable one. The second of the three criminals is Nathan, also known as Diamond Dog, who was formerly the leader of a guerrilla fighter gang. He has been charged with detonating a conference meeting of the National Armed Forces. The third criminal is Cyrus, also known as the Virus, who has committed virtually every crime imaginable. He has broken out of prison twice, instigated 3 riots, and killed 11 hostages. What is even more terrifying is that this criminal has 2 bachelor's degrees, making him an educated criminal. As the saying goes, it's not the random thugs that are the most frightening, it's the educated ones. These 3 criminals were all held in separate areas, with Vince Larkin, chief of the United States Police Department, in charge of supervision. Agent Duncan of the Anti-Narcotics Agency is also looking to investigate a large drug trafficking ring. The DEA sent one of their agents to board the plane carrying Francisco Sandino, the son of a notorious drug lord, as it approached Carson City. Knowing that weapons were forbidden on board, the DEA wanted to make sure their agent had access to a weapon in case of an emergency. The only gun on the plane was located in the pilot's chamber, so Duncan and Larkin had to work together to ensure the agent had a gun. Duncan secretly provided the agent with a gun before boarding the plane. Cameron was filled with anticipation as he imagined the joyous reunion with his daughter, but little did he know that it would soon turn into a disaster. The plane quickly took off, but it wasn't long before the 3 criminals began to hatch their escape plan. Nathan and Cyrus swiftly withdrew a needle concealed in the palm of their hands and silently unlocked the handcuffs. At that moment, an inmate named Parker outside took a match from a small pack of gasoline, which he had hidden in his mouth, and sprinkled it on a prisoner sitting next to him before igniting him, creating a chaotic scene. The guard quickly unlocked the door, rushing in to put out the fire. Taking advantage of the situation, Parker snatched the guard's key and released Nathan and Cyrus. Nathan, with his impressive physical strength, easily overpowered the guard. Cyrus then sprinted to the pilot chamber, standing guard at the door and waiting for the co-pilot to draw his gun. During the altercation, several prisoners were tragically killed. In the end, Cyrus apprehended the co-pilot and shot him dead. He then entered the chamber and threatened the other pilot to keep the situation hidden. After gaining control of the plane, all the prisoners were ecstatic, but Cameron and Odell were still uncertain of their freedom until they encountered something like this. To make matters worse, all the insulin syringes had been destroyed, leaving Odell with only 1 insulin tube. If he did not find an insulin syringe within the next 2 hours, he would likely succumb to his illness. At that moment, the DEA agent leapt out with his gun, hoping to bring the situation under control. Cameron urged him to lower his weapon, explaining that a resolution was impossible in the current circumstances. Just then, another prisoner attempted to snatch the agent's gun, but failed. Taking advantage of the distraction, Cyrus fired a shot, killing the agent. Thanks to Cameron's quick thinking, he had inadvertently gained Cyrus' trust, who believed he had been diverting the agent's attention. Upon arriving in Carson City, Cyrus learned from the guard that 6 people would disembark from the plane and 10 new people would board. Of the 6 people that got off, 3 were white and 3 were black. Unfortunately, the 3 white men had been shot in an earlier encounter. Cyrus then devised a plan to have the 3 other white men impersonate them. Cameron had the opportunity to get off the plane and be free, but due to his loyalty to his fellow inmate Odell, he lied to Cyrus and said he had another 15 years in prison so he could stay and find the syringe to save his friend's life. Cameron then put the recording device that the DEA agent had been carrying into a prisoner who would be dropped off in Carson. When the plane landed in Carson City, everyone who disembarked was wearing a hooded cloth and had their mouths taped. It was then revealed that the thugs had taken the risk of landing in Carson City to cooperate with the drug lord who had ordered the plane to be hijacked. The drug lord's son, Sandino, was to board the plane in Carson City. The drug lord had arranged for them a flight to London Airport, ensuring that they would have enough wealth for the rest of their lives. Among the passengers who boarded the plane with Sandino was a renowned mad scientist, Swamp Thing, who was an expert in aviation. As soon as he got on the plane, he removed the tracking device and handed it to Parker. The most striking figure on the plane was Garland Green, a notorious criminal who had killed 37 people in a particularly cruel manner. Even Cyrus was afraid of him. At the same time, Larkin discovered some information on Cyrus' cell phone, revealing that they had been planning to hijack the plane all along. They had detailed knowledge of the aircraft structure, the number of guards, and even the landing points. To add to the surprise, Cyrus had also given Larkin a bomb in the cell. The police in Carson City had also discovered the recording device and immediately informed the United States Police Department. The emergency police took swift action and had to stop the plane. Realizing that his plot had been uncovered, Cyrus commanded Swamp Thing to take off immediately. Parker, who was busy flirting with a girl, didn't make it on the plane in time and started chasing it. Unfortunately, when the wheels closed off, he was left behind. When Larkin received the news, the plane had already taken off. But according to the news from Carson City, the agent that Duncan had sneaked in had been killed, causing Duncan to become extremely enraged. Larkin also suspected that Cameron was on the plane with the thug, but Duncan was too angry to listen to what Larkin had to say. Larkin then persuaded his superiors to send 3 helicopters to intercept the plane, and if necessary, shoot it down. Unfortunately, Parker's body had become jammed in the plane's wheels, significantly reducing its speed. Cyrus instructed Nathan and Cameron to investigate the issue, and while Nathan was distracted, Cameron took the opportunity to write Larkin's name on Parker's body and throw it off the plane. Parker's body plummeted from the sky, crashing into a car. The local police quickly informed Larkin of this, and upon checking the map, he discovered that the location was the exact opposite of the tracking device's location. Despite this, Duncan remained stubborn and refused to listen to Larkin. Feeling helpless, Larkin decided to pursue Duncan in his car, and while driving, contacted the National Guard for support. Back on the plane, Billy suspected Cameron, so he rummaged through his bag and found the release order. Cameron knew that he had to act fast or else he would be in serious trouble. He had to silence Billy before he could alert anyone else. Cameron's military training kicked in and he quickly subdued Billy. After a while, Billy was completely incapacitated. Duncan quickly arrived at the tracking device location, only to discover that he had been tricked. The tracking device was actually in another plane. He had no choice but to divert the helicopter and fly back to the airport. Larkin raced to the airport, but when he arrived, he found it completely deserted. He then stumbled upon a dead body. At that moment, the hijacked plane arrived, as there was no guidance from the control tower. As it descended, it encountered another plane that was also landing, and the 2 planes almost collided. Fortunately, both planes managed to land safely. After disembarking, Cyrus noticed the other plane coming to pick them up. Sandino declared that the plane would arrive soon, but Cyrus was too impatient to wait. He ordered everyone to grab a shovel and start digging. If the drug lord's plane didn't come, they could always use the old one. Halfway through, Cameron used the excuse of looking for oil to go off in search of insulin for his friend. When he entered the warehouse, he was ambushed by the drug lord's group. It turns out that the Sandino plane had arrived a long time ago, but they had been hiding in the warehouse, planning to betray Cyrus. At that moment, Larkin suddenly appeared and Cameron seized the opportunity to fight back. He grabbed a weapon and quickly dealt with the assailants. Larkin recognized Cameron and revealed his identity, but Cameron kept his distance. "I sent you guys news. How is there only help now?" Cameron asked urgently, desperate to find the insulin to save his friend. So they decided to split up. Unfortunately, they didn't notice that there was a pilot hiding on the plane. The National Guard that Larkin had called finally arrived, and Johnny 23 was on guard. He quickly reported to Cyrus and they hastily pulled the plane out. Sandino took advantage of this opportunity to escape. The pilot had been waiting for Cyrus in the plane for a while, ready to take off, but when they emerged from the warehouse, Larkin used a crane operator to knock the plane down. Realizing he had been tricked by Sandino, Cyrus decided to take matters into his own hands and burn Sandino alive, leaving the thug with no way back. Cyrus then discovered the location of the armory on the plane. When he went to retrieve the weapon, he found Billy's body, but there was no time to think about that. Cyrus quickly started sending out weapons to everyone and devised a plan based on the terrain, assigning everyone to ambush the cops. Meanwhile, the creepy Garland Green serial killer was playing tea party with a little girl. Cameron then unexpectedly found a needle, and the security team arrived at this time, prompting the two sides to begin shooting at each other. Taking advantage of the terrain, Cyrus attacked quickly, causing heavy casualties to the guard. Larkin drove a bulldozer to prevent the prisoners' attack and began to counterattack. Cameron, unable to help himself, took a risk and ran out into the middle of the rain of bullets to return to helping Odell. Before boarding the plane to prevent it from taking off, he tied a rope to a concrete post. After boarding the plane, Cameron intervened to prevent Johnny 23 from harassing the female guard, then hung the pervert up. The prisoners began to board the plane in an attempt to escape, but Cyrus noticed the rope was tied to a concrete post. He fired several shots at the pillar, shattering it. Unexpectedly, the hook of the rope snagged onto Duncan's car, dragging it into the sky. At this point, Cameron had finished injecting insulin into Odell, but the plane had already taken off and they were unable to leave. Duncan had just arrived and was shocked to see his car flying, before it crashed into the control tower. He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the license plate, confirming it was his car. Duncan and Larkin immediately got on the helicopter to pursue the plane, while the little girl waved goodbye. Perhaps it was her innocence that made the killer reconsider his actions. On the plane, Nathan found Cameron's release order, which he then sent to Cyrus. Cyrus had suspected an insider for a long time and now it was confirmed to be Cameron, but suddenly Odell stood up and confessed that he was the insider. He was immediately shot on the spot by Cyrus, while Larkin and Duncan managed to catch up. Duncan was determined to cause destruction, and if it weren't for Larkin's quick intervention, he would have launched a missile to shoot down the plane. The chaotic scene that ensued was a perfect opportunity for Cameron to take down more guards and reach the pilot's chamber. He managed to take control of the chamber, but by the time Cyrus realized what was happening, it was too late. Cameron contacted Larkin, informing him that they would land as soon as possible. The plane flew towards the sky of Las Vegas, and Larkin contacted the airport to disperse the flight path. The plane was flying with a damaged engine and due to insufficient fuel, they were unable to reach the airport and were forced to land on the main road. There were still many cars on the road, and the plane kept crashing forward. At this time, Cyrus caught up with Cameron and threatened to kill his wife and daughter, causing Cameron's blood to boil. The plane collided east and west, eventually crashing into a casino and coming to a stop. The police immediately surrounded the plane. When Odell received prompt medical attention, it was a sigh of relief, but the sight of Johnny 23 hanging was heart-wrenching, his arm having been completely severed. Cyrus attempted to make a run for it and stole a fire truck to escape, in hopes of avoiding retaliation against his loved ones. Cameron and Larkin then hopped on their motorcycles, hot on their tail in a thrilling land chase. Unfortunately for the criminals, their luck ran out. Nathan was hit by a motorcycle and the explosion was his last hurrah. Swamp Things met the same fate after being hit by a bank truck. The saddest end was reserved for Cyrus, who was caught and crushed by Cameron. And just like that, the chaos came to a close. Cameron finally reunited with his wife and daughter, and they could finally start a happy life together, including finally getting to meet his little girl. The lucky one out of the bunch was Garland Green. His soul was stirred by the innocence of a young girl and he hit the jackpot in a casino. He was the only one who made it out unscathed and the movie reaches its conclusion.